How about that? Very good stuff from Person of Interest. Morning Express will be bringing you very interesting personalities from across the country's newsmakers and, of course, people who are making a difference in the country so that you can get to learn more about them. So keep it Morning Express. But far from that, let's take a look at matters money. And Waithaka Gatumia, CEO of Centonomy, is joining me to discuss how to invest during a crisis. 2022, rather 2020 and 2021, possibly all the way to 2022, will be difficult economic times. They have been difficult economic times, and 2021 we're making a recovery, but it's a bit tough. So I saw a poster from Centonomy about this, and I was curious, how on earth can we invest? Because most people are just trying to survive the difficult times. So, Mr. Gatumia, the question I'll start with is it even possible to invest in an economic crisis?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. Please don't speak into 2022. I think 2020 and 2021 so far have been tough enough. We're praying and hoping for much better years ahead. But the issue is this. We don't have a choice whether we invest or not during a crisis, because crises are part of life. Things will come that are shocks to the market, that are shocks to your personal life, and we cannot live our lives based on those shocks. We've talked about this many times here on this station. Mm-hmm. As economy, we talk about investing for the long term, with a goal in mind, with the future in mind, and that as you're getting to that goal, you know there will be mountains, there will be valleys. Yes. And what you're trying to do is consistency over that period of time.
Yes.
If you have that mindset, then it gives you the opportunity to see where are those chances, where are the things that can be available even during a time of crisis.
Right, so Mr. Gatumia, sorry to cut you short, but we all know what 2020 was like, and while we might have that mindset and we're very hopeful, I see you shaking your head that we could keep up with our investments. I mean, how do you actually, because most people, I'm sure, put a hold to some of the payments they were making towards certain savings because they were trying to, the instinct is to be safe, huddle up and wait for the storm to pass. But what you're saying sounds counterproductive. Maybe just perhaps get into it with specifics. How actually can someone who has been laid off, or maybe their business is not faring well because of a lockdown or, restrictions when the borders were closed, how could they actually have kept it up in terms of investments, or maybe even had a pay cut?
Well, first of all is to prepare, because it's so important to prepare for those shocks. So one of the things that we teach at Centonomy is to have what we call an emergency fund. What does that mean? To put aside some cash for emergencies as best as you possibly can. Now, don't try and think about it as trying to put all this money together within 1 or 2 months. No, this is a process over time that you just begin to put aside some cash every so often into an account that you're saying, this is an account I'm not touching unless I am forced to, unless there is an actual emergency that I'm going to draw from it. The problem is that for many of us, we have emergencies almost every month because we are poorly spending, so we are overspending. We stretch ourselves, we are too much in debt. And once we begin to take control of our finances and say, you know what, there will be another 2020 type crisis in future. We've had them before, the 2008 financial crisis. We've had those things happen. And it's about the ability to say, you know what, when it happens, if I put something aside, then it'll allow me some time to make some choices over this period of time. The second thing is, if you can build what we call income earning assets, then you're not just reliant on one thing, like for instance, your job. For everybody who's employed, like myself, like you as well, we need to begin to think, how do we put some money aside into investments that will be putting money in our pocket rather than just taking money out? So that during a crisis, you're able to say, oh, at least there's that income stream, and where are the opportunities?
Okay.
Because let me tell you, It is, I know it's a cliche, but everyone knows this. When there is problems, that means there are opportunities. And that's what we can talk about now.
Yeah, and we talked about the income earners. Perhaps it would take a bit of wisdom and knowledge to know which one would actually survive a crisis, because sometimes even those streams dry up when you're in a crisis. So if you would literally tell the viewers at home, what sort of investments should they be making that would actually be less of a risk during a crisis, and therefore be safe enough for them, and they can actually rely on them as they think towards maybe future crises?
So if we talk about income earners, two popular income earners in the Kenyan market are real estate, for instance, rental properties, and as well as government bonds. So as you saw last year, with real estate, it's difficult because if your tenant is in trouble, can they pay rent, or if they have to leave, finding another tenant may be difficult. However, for many people, if you're reasonable, and you saw landlords doing this, giving their tenants a bit of time to repay, maybe even giving them a few months off their rent payment to keep that tenant in place, you can be strategic as a business owner to do that. Those who put their money, for instance, in government bonds didn't have to go through that issue. You see, so long as the government is in place and they are running and as normal, they will make that repayment on the government bond without you having to chase a tenant or have to worry about those things. So there is relative security in those. It is only if the government was actually to fall apart, and if it fell apart, then we are all in trouble. Your business will be in trouble, your work will be... If the government is not in place, you're already in trouble. Then a government bond is also a great place for that income earner to think about that cash flow that is coming through.
Right.
But there are other investments and opportunities, especially during a crisis, that you need to look for.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about those, of course, far from yourself, what are some of the, because you need to get this knowledge from a reliable source if you're looking for someone to advise you on where to put your money, on where to invest. So what would you advise people to lean on to when they're looking for reliable information about, you know, investing, particularly in this country? Because a lot of times people fall prey to pyramid schemes. Some of them fall prey to, you know, all these, funds. The quail eggs are an example of something that people really invested hoping to make bank, but many did not. So as you try and figure out where you would fit in, and how would you advise someone to go about getting this information that is street smart and specific to Kenya, not some foreign blog that's telling you vague information?
That's right. So here's the thing. If you are looking to, for instance, invest in, as you said, some agricultural business, like the quail that you're talking about, don't talk to your cousin who came and told you about their second friend who they didn't even know, who made a lot of money in this problem. Go and talk to a quail farmer, somebody who's actually doing it right now. Listen to their processes. Listen to what they've gone through. If you'd like to invest, for instance, in the stock market, please don't go to a bank or to a friend again who you don't know whether they have industry expertise. Go to an industry expert, and you don't have to go to one. Go to two of them so that you hear differing perspectives. Go to a stockbroker, because they are the ones who are actually involved in the market on a day-to-day basis. Listen to their information. Most of the time when you go to a stockbroker, the information is free. They make their money when you make a purchase or when you make a sale. Okay. So listen to their advice. Go to another stockbroker and listen to their advice. Go to an industry expert. Because if you are listening to what the market is saying, the market can be very, very frivolous. It can be very much based on people's emotions. But when you go, for instance, to a real estate agent, and don't go to one, go to a few of them, and just ask them, in this area, what are the prices like? What are you looking forward in the future? That's the information from industry experts that matters. Because when we, for instance, when we are running our classes at Centonomy, I'm not the one giving you advice. We go look for a real estate agent, we look for a stockbroker, we look for somebody who's in that area of interest, so that they're telling you what is live. Don't go to somebody who's just giving you free information that you can't get, that they have no real basis of experience on.
Absolutely.
Look for industry experts.
And what's your stand on side hustles, and how would they feed into this whole hope of being able to invest? Because when it came to 2020, job security was quite the issue in the country. So how would you speak to that as a way of people preparing for perhaps hard times? Is it even feasible?
I believe it completely. One of the issues that we have with employees like ourselves is that we often spend a majority of our time in the interest of our employer. And I'm now speaking to you as an employee, and I'm telling you, who is taking care of you? You're busy working extremely hard, 8 hours plus a day on behalf of your employer. So who's taking care of you and your money? When you invest your time and your energy into a side hustle, you are now taking control and saying, I am taking care of me. What does that mean? That with the time that I have, look, I'm not saying, please, this is one of the issues with employees and employers. When you have a side hustle and suddenly you can't be found at work, that is not the right thing to do. You have a responsibility to your employer, do that. But the moment you clock off at 5 p.m., there is nothing stopping you between 5 p.m. and the time that you go to sleep. And any time before 8 a.m. in the morning, what can you be doing? On the weekends, what can you be doing? So when you take some of the cash that you're earning and invest it in a business that will earn you more, that is one of those things, as we said, in a crisis, you want to have multiple streams of income that can assist you. And for many people last year, if they had to leave their job or they had decreased income, it was their side hustle that was paying for what they're doing.
Okay. Now, because you're the expert, I'd like you to point out something that we've missed out on in this conversation, a key element as we conclude the interview.
So watch this. When it's times of crisis, there are opportunities. So for instance, like last year, people were under pressure, they needed money. So what do they want to do? They want to sell their assets, but they need that money quickly. They can't wait for too long. So what happens is that often people will be willing to sell their assets at a cheaper price than the market rate because they don't have time to wait. As an investor, that is a great opportunity. There was a piece of a property a few kilometers from my place, a nice house and a piece of land last year that if you went to the market on a normal day was worth 50 million shillings. But this person was an expatriate. They're trying to leave the country because of all this COVID business, and they just needed cash at that point. They were selling that property at 50% less, 25 million shillings. Those who had the ability, that was a 50% discount on a very good piece of property. If you went to the stock market, for instance, when the crisis hit, a lot of foreign money left the market. And if you remember, for a period of time, around March, the market was depressed. Nothing had changed in the local companies, so that meant that their stocks were being offered at a discount. That was a great time to buy them because eventually, by the grace of God, they will increase. But in all these things, Trixie, please educate yourself. Pick up a book on investment. Go to a class on investment. It makes a huge difference. We've got a huge amount of free material on centonomy.com. We welcome everybody to come and check that out.
All right. Thank you very much, Rebecca Gatumia, always with the knowledge on how to make use of your money and make the money work for you. Thank you so much for bringing us context and, of course, solution to some of the situations that we have been facing. And hopefully 2022 will be a good one. Thank you so much. And, of course, thank you to you viewers for joining us here on Morning Express today. It has been a very interesting one, from Person of Interest, Press Review, and now your money, investing during a crisis. Word to the wise. I hope you have learned something. But for us here, the crew behind Morning Express, I'd like to say thank you, and of course have yourself a lovely day ahead. My name is Trix Ingado.
And I'm Jesse Rogers. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.